Welcome to my podcast. My name is Rosalee, and welcome to Ramble on Rose. My name is, of course, Rose or Rosalee. This is my dad, who will be forever known as Dad, but not your dad. Now, we've been doing this for a very long time. Of course, reading.
Yes, and we started reading chapter books probably about 5 or 6 years ago with The Princess Bride, which is a great book if you've never read it. Tell them about some of the other fun books.
We read all the Harry Potter books. It almost took us a year, I think. Or
it was a long
maybe
time.
a year. Who knows? And then we started with Shakespeare plays. Of course, we did Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet. I actually did a soliloquy once about it.
Yeah.
And then we did Mrs. Bridge, and then we just finally finished...
Oh, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So we don't always do boring books, but yes. Today, tell us.
Jerry, don't yawn, and Catherine, don't go sleep. We're reading Macbeth.
Also known as the Scottish play, as we'll find out in just a moment why it's called that.
Your mind's going to be blown. I don't even know.
What do you know about Macbeth?
I know it's a tragedy of errors.
Yeah, no, just a tragedy.
A tragedy. Okay, I keep thinking of the other thing.
And who are the characters?
Witches.
Witches, that's right. It starts out with witches, and it's all about how the witches affect a man called Macbeth. And the tragedy that ensues. There's another thing that I learned that I thought was really interesting is right before this play, there was something called the Gunpowder Revolt. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
Well, in England, there were people who were against James I, and so they took 36 barrels of gunpowder and they put them under the floor of Parliament, and there was a guy there named Guy Fawkes. And
wow, a guy named Guy Fawkes.
That's where we get the term guy. It was originally guy was a term that meant a bad person, but then it just became known as just a regular person, is referred to as a guy. But that's where we actually get that term from.
You know, if his last name was Guy, it'd be Guy.
He was the person who was in charge of blowing up the gunpowder when Parliament was going to be in session the next time. And he unfortunately had to wait there for weeks because they were delayed in starting. And someone ended up sending a letter telling the people in Parliament about the plot. So they captured him, captured Guy with all the gunpowder. And they hanged him along with a bunch of the other plotters who tried to blow up Parliament. And they not only did they hang them, they also drew and quartered him. You know what that means?
No.
They cut him up into pieces just to make sure he was dead.
Are you sure? Because like cannibals, are you sure they're not cannibals?
No, they literally hanged him and then cut him up into pieces.
Okay, that's
just to make sure he was dead. I know.
But
this is the time. This is the time that this is what was going on in Shakespeare's time. But anyway, this is the best part about England is on September 5th, and they've been celebrating this for over 400 years. They have something called Guy Fawkes Day. And what happens is, and it's like our 4th of July where they shoot off fireworks. And they actually, the kids will make up a straw dummy of Guy Fawkes, and what they would do is they would display the dummy and try and get people to contribute fireworks so that they could shoot off fireworks on the Guy Fawkes Day. And as a part of the celebration, they would burn Guy Fawkes in effigy, which means they would hang him from a tree and set fire to him and then all celebrate when they were burning. So I know.
I mean, I love it. I love it, but
it's actually a holiday still in England. The witches in Macbeth will set the stage for a theme that goes throughout the play, which is of equivocation. Do you know what equivocation means?
No, I do not. What is it for the children?
Equivocation literally means talking out of both sides of your mouth. And you'll soon see the witches say in the beginning that fair is foul and foul is fair. And these are two opposite statements, so how could they both be true? And but if you think about it, talking out of both sides of your mouth is really a fairly common thing that particularly politicians are accused of in modern times. So I found this clip from Donald Rumsfeld, who was Secretary of Defense years ago. This is from a press conference.
I think we should do the clarification now.
The standard disclaimer?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead with the standard. We're going to read the standard disclaimer.
Okay. Any reference to a political figure does not indicate an endorsement of any particular political party. Anyone who says otherwise is itching for a fight.
All right, this is a press conference with Donald Rumsfeld, who was our Secretary of Defense. He got a lot of criticism for this because he didn't really give a straight answer. He equivocated to the reporter's question. And I remember your mom and I was home from lunch that day, and we just happened to watch the press conference because it was on the Iraq War, and it was big news at the time.
Of course. And
the reporter was asking Rumsfeld about terrorist activity, and there was going to actually this was I think around the start when they were starting to have lots of bombings and stuff like that and loss of life, and it was going to get worse. And so they were basically asking him what he knew, how much he knew about where this was coming from, and this is how he answered the question.
There are reports that there is no evidence of a direct link between Baghdad and some of these terrorist organizations.
There are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Excuse me, but is this an unknown unknown?
I'm not.
Several unnowns, and I'm just wondering.
I'm not going to say which it is.
And so that was an example of how Rumsfeld could have given a simple answer to the question. It sounded like we didn't really know everything we needed to know, but instead he gave a very convoluted answer, and then in the end really wouldn't say what his answer was. And soon we'll see how the idea of equivocation of how things that look good can actually be evil, and things that look evil are actually good throughout the play.
Like the old saying, never judge a book by its cover.
And so I wanted one more thing before we started. I thought this was really interesting. Did you realize that there is a curse associated with this play?
No, I did not. I thought it was all about witches.
No, my friend George, who has produced this play at Shakespeare on the Park, told me about this, that typically whenever this play is put on, they avoid saying the word Macbeth except as part of the rehearsal and the actual play. They don't use the word Macbeth.
Huh.
Have you ever heard that? Yeah, and I actually checked it here, and it's a legend that's gone on for years and years. They're not exactly. There are people who believe in the curse that claim that real spells are cast in the Three Witches scene, and that in reality the spells also believe that the witches should be chosen to act the roles that it is failure to do so creates the environment which the curse supposedly went into effect. So since they're not using real witches, that's why the curse goes into effect. And it says that there are incidents that have happened over the years that that first time that it was enacted that instead of using a trick dagger in the scene, they used a real dagger, and so the person ended up getting murdered during the play.
Well, that was on.
Yeah.
I think it's just some pagan blah. You know?
So it says, according to superstition, Shakespeare got a few of the lines from an actual coven of witches, and when they saw the play, they were greatly offended and cursed the play. Another tradition says that the original prop master could not find a suitable pot for a cauldron and stole one from a coven and then cursed the play in revenge for the theft. Lastly, and probably is that Shakespeare uses the curse in the play to actually curse the play himself, guaranteeing that no one other than himself will be able to direct it. And so there are several cleansing rituals that are associated with the play. So when the name of the play is spoken in a theater, tradition requires that the person who spoke it has to leave and perform traditional cleansing rituals and then be invited back in. The rituals are supposed to ward off the evil uttering the play's name that the fear is bringing on. The rituals include turning around 3 times, spitting over one's left shoulder, swearing, or reciting a line from another Shakespeare play, such as "Angels and ministers of grace defend us" from Hamlet. Supposedly, you're supposed to leave the theater, spin around, brushing yourself off, and say Macbeth 3 times before entering again, and then you have to ask permission to come back in. So do you want to play that? You want to play by those rules so that if we ever say Macbeth, we'll have to do the cleansing ritual outside of the play?
Okay. We're doing it.
All right, we're on it. We're full cleansing ritual here. I think that's enough background for now. I thought this is my old Shakespeare book
It's very
from
torn
college. It's very big. But I thought it's got some background, and it points out that Macbeth is more like us, even though he's a murderer.
You just said Macbeth. I just said.
Oh.
I'll do it. I'll take your punishment. Don't worry.
All right.
Excuse me. I'll be right back. Goodbye. Oh, I can't even open my door. You guys keep talking. Can I come in?
No.
Can I come in?
Yes, come on in.
Ugh. Okay. Hello.
It says here that Macbeth is more like us than, this is comparing him to Richard III. We share Macbeth's inclination toward brutality as well as his humane resistance to that urge. We witness and struggle to understand his downfall through 2 phases. 1, the soul struggle leading up to the crime, and then the despairing aftermath with its vain quest for security through continued violence. In other words, he has to keep killing to cover up the crime.
Keep killing and killing.
Evil is thus
killing.
presented in 2 aspects. First, as an insidious suggestion leading us to, on toward an illusory promise of gain. In other words, we think that we're going to get a reward for being evil. And then as a frenzied addiction to the hated thing by which we're possessed. In other words, guilt is a powerful thing.
Guilt is very powerful.
All right. First, we'll start with a list of characters, also known as the dramatis personae.
I'm dramatis.
And I'm personae. And first, of course, there's Duncan, King of Scotland. And spoiler alert.
He sounds like Dunkin' Donuts.
His sons are Malcolm and Donalbain. And then our tragic hero, Macbeth and Banquo are generals in the king's army. And then there are the noblemen of Scotland: Macduff, Lennox, Ross, Menteith, Angus, Caithness, and then we move on to Fleance, who is son to Banquo, and then Seaward, who is
He
Earl.
sounds like a baby curse word.
Yeah, Seaward, the C word, Earl of
It's
Northumberland.
like your little brother tattling on you, or your little sister, like so. Like she said the C word.
And then there's young Seaward, his son. Then there's Satan, an officer.
Wait, Satan?
Seyton. Maybe it's Seaton.
Seaton.
An
That
officer.
sounds better than Satan.
An officer attending Macbeth. Then there's Boy. He has no other name. Son of Macduff.
boy.
English
boy.
doctor. Scottish doctor. Captain. Soldier. The porter, who will provide the comic relief for the play.
Are you sure that you're
I
the
think
comic relief?
he's kind of
'Cause
funny.
I am the comic relief.
He's kind of funny. I think
Are you sure?
you're gonna meet your match when it comes to the porter. Then
No,
there's
I'll probably punch him and say,
then the
I am the true comic
And
relief.
then following the old man and the three murderers, that's when they introduce the women of the play.
That's kind of sexist.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Because I have no opinion.
Lady Macbeth, who is Macbeth's wife, and then
She's like one of the most like important characters, right?
Well, you'll see. I mean, one of the big questions is Macbeth acting on his own, or is his wife actually influencing him to make these dire decisions? And then there's Lady Macduff, and then of course the gentlewoman, who also has no name,
The gentlewoman.
who attends Lady Macbeth. And then there's Hecate and the three witches, our hero witches. Hooray!
Hooray.
And then various
kind of covered up the
apparitions.
the thing, but it's okay.
That's all right. And then, of course, lords, gentlemen, officers, soldiers, attendants, and messengers. The scene is set in Scotland, England. And it says here that there is thunder and lightning before three witches enter.
I know what to do. Alexa, continue Thunderstorm.
Try it again.
Darn you, Alexa! Alexa, play Thunderstorm. It's starting. Okay.
All right.
Yay! It didn't hate me. Just doing up the volume. Not copyright. Yeah. Not copyright.
All right, and so we begin.
It's like, oh shoot.
First witch. When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? Second witch. When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. We have to do some witch cackling.
Hold on, I got it full on. Hold on, let me drink some water and I'll be perfect. Ready? Just like. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Now it's more like.
I don't know.
Perfect.
Okay.
Third witch. That will be ere the set of the sun. So they're waiting for the battle to be over. And the third witch says that the battle will be over ere before the sun sets. First witch. Where the place? Second witch. Upon the heath. Third witch.
The Pizza Hut heat?
Not quite. The heath means like on the plain. Third witch. There to meet with Macbeth. First witch. I come, Grey Malkin.
Macbeth.
Second witch. Paddock calls. Third witch means anon, which means goodbye.
Anon.
And then finally, all say, fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. And then all three exuent. And before we go on, fair is foul and foul is fair. those words, right? And they're talking about weather at the very beginning. We have weather playing. So, have you ever heard that term where it's going to be fair weather, or that's a real foul storm outside? You've never heard those terms? All right. How about?
I mean, I've heard of foul and fair, but
Yeah,
not those.
yeah. But like, what about in baseball? What happens if you hit the ball and it falls inside the line? That's called a
Foul.
no. Inside mean when it falls inside the line, it
I
means
said
it's a fair.
foul.
No, it's a fair ball.
Oh.
If it goes outside, it's foul.
Oh.
So if it's fair, that means it's good and it counts. If it's foul, that means that it's no good. So what they're saying is fair is foul and foul is fair. They're trying to say that what is normally good is evil and what is normally evil is good. But then also I read that it has that they themselves are look like witches. They look like hags basically. And so another to what they described, a beautiful woman was referred to as what kind of maiden? Fair maiden, beautiful. So what they're saying is that even though they're ugly, they bring something beautiful to present to Macbeth.